A security guard walked out the front doors of a Seoul skyscraper carrying a bucket of water. A black woman was sleeping on the steps, plastic bags over her shoes, a torn blanket pulled to her chin. He stood over her, 2 hands on the handle, steady. The way a man does something he's done before. He poured. The water hit her face like a slap, then silence. Then a gasp, choking, raw, the sound of someone dragged from nothing into cold. Brutal now. Her chest heaved. Her eyes blinked through the water. She didn't scream. She didn't curse. She sat there shaking, staring at nothing, like a person looking at a world with no labels on anything. The guard set the bucket down. "Move," he said in Korean. Louder, "Move." She didn't know the word. She knew the tone. Around them, the plaza moved. Suits and briefcases and earbuds. 200 people within 50 feet. Not one pair of shoes changed direction. But here's what got me. Even soaked, even shaking, even with filthy clothes and plastic bags on her feet, her hands were clean. Now look up. 40 floors. Yoon Tae-yang wasn't watching the plaza. He was reading a spreadsheet, shipping routes, quarterly numbers, the dull engine of a business empire that stretched across 6 countries. Then, something pulled his eyes down. A shape on the steps. A woman, wet, sitting up. Her profile turned slightly left, chin lifted against the cold. Half a second. That's all he needed. The coffee cup hit the carpet. Before we go any further, subscribe now, because what you think happened to this woman for 8 months is not what happened. And the man running for that elevator, he is not who you think he is either. His breathing was sharp, controlled. Through his nose, the breath of a man holding himself inside his own body. He'd spent 243 nights searching 4 countries for his missing wife. He'd shown her photo in Tokyo, in Shanghai, in Vancouver, in every police station and shelter and hospital waiting room he could find. 12 private investigators. A reward of 500 million won. And she was on his steps. She was on his steps. The doors opened. He ran. His shoes cracked across the marble lobby. The receptionist stood up. A delivery man stepped sideways. The revolving door was too slow. He hit the side exit with his shoulder and burst into the plaza at a full sprint. He dropped. Both knees hit wet concrete. The sound was sharp, bone against stone. His suit pants darkened at the knees. He didn't notice. His hands came up to her face, both hands cupping her cheeks. Thumbs brushing water from under her eyes. "Imani." She blinked. "Imani." His voice cracked. She looked at him. Through him. Past him. Her mouth moved, but nothing came out. She didn't pull away. That was the thing. Her eyes held nothing. No spark, no warmth, no memory. But she didn't pull away. Her body stayed still under his hands. The plaza stopped. 200 people froze. A phone slipped from someone's hand and cracked against marble. The sound carried like a gunshot. A taxi driver forgot to turn. The guard, Choi Dae-sung, stood 4 feet away, the empty bucket still in his right hand. It swung gently, back and forth, like a pendulum counting the seconds of his career ending. He had poured water on the owner's wife. She'd been sleeping on the owner's steps. She vanished from a hospital in Busan 8 months ago. He searched 4 countries, and she was right here, right below him. I need you to hold that image. The man on his knees, the woman who doesn't know him, the bucket still swinging. Because everything that follows, everything, traces back to this moment on wet stone. Everything after moved fast. Tae-yang pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. His hands were shaking. His voice was not. "Call Dr. Kang at Samsung Medical. Use my name. Tell him it's my wife." The security officer blinked, looked at the homeless woman, looked at the jacket, looked back at Tae-yang. "Sir, now." 2 minutes later, his driver brought the car around. He lifted Imani himself, one arm under her knees, one behind her back, and carried her across the plaza. Her head rested against his shoulder, still shaking, still silent, still looking at the world like a language she couldn't read. The door closed. The car moved. Behind them, the plaza smelled like cold water and expensive cologne. Samsung Medical Center. The intake desk. The senior nurse, wire-framed glasses, name tag reading Park Sun-hee, looked at the paperwork, looked at Tae-yang, looked at Imani. "Sir," she said in careful English, "are you sure this is your wife? She's foreign, and she can't confirm her name." He reached into his back pocket, pulled out a photograph, a 4x6 print, corners soft from 8 months of handling. He set it flat on the counter. The photo. Imani and Tae-yang on a beach in Jeju, her head thrown back, laughing, his arm around her waist, both barefoot. "She's my wife, don't ask again." Then he listed 3 things. She has a scar on her left knee from a bicycle fall in Accra when she was 9. She sleeps on her right side. She rolls her left sleeve when she's nervous. Always the left. The nurse behind him froze mid-step. Her shoe squeaked once on the tile. Nurse Park pulled the photo closer. 3 seconds. Then she turned to her screen and typed. Nobody in that hallway spoke. "Now, let me tell you what happened 8 months before that morning. Because you think you know. You don't." October 14th. Their anniversary. 3 years married. Tae-yang had booked their favorite restaurant in Haeundae, 7th floor, ocean view, the table where he proposed. 2 chairs, a bottle of the Spanish red she liked. 2016 Tempranillo, the one she said tasted like summer. Imani was driving from their Busan apartment. Her green dress, knee-length, silk, never worn, tag still on, hung in a garment bag from the back seat hook. She was going to change at the restaurant. The radio was playing their song, a slow R&B track, something about staying. She was humming. A truck ran a red light on the coastal highway at 7:38 p.m. Her sedan hit the barrier at 60, the airbag fired, the windshield cracked into a web, the green dress swung on its hook and settled against broken glass. She was alive. But when the medics pulled her out, she couldn't tell them her name. They brought her to Busan University Hospital. Unidentified female, early 30s, no ID. Her purse was thrown from the car. No phone shattered under the dashboard. She stayed 11 days. Then she was gone. Not released, not transferred, gone. A bed that was full at midnight and empty at 6 a.m. No discharge form, no signature. The hallway camera was offline for maintenance that week. A woman with no name and no memory walked out of a hospital in Busan and into the dark. And nobody noticed. When Tae-yang arrived at the restaurant that night, 8:04 p.m., 4 minutes late, her chair was empty. He called her phone, voicemail, again. Voicemail, again. By midnight, he was at Busan Police Station. The officer behind the desk, young, tired, halfway through his shift, asked the standard questions. How long has she been missing? Since this evening. Is she a Korean citizen? Ghanaian. We've been married 3 years. The officer wrote it down. He didn't write it fast. 4 days later, a highway patrol report matched the license plate. The car was in an impound lot. The green dress was still in the back seat. He went to the hospital. Yes, they said. An unidentified woman was admitted on October 14th. Head trauma. Amnesia. Where is she now? The nurse checked, called her supervisor. The supervisor called someone else. Nobody could answer. The file just stopped. Tae-yang stood in that lobby for a full minute, fists at his sides. Jaw so tight the muscle under his ear jumped. Then he walked to his car and made 12 calls before he reached the highway. 12 investigators, 4 in Korea, 3 in Japan, 2 in China, 3 in Canada, because Imani had a cousin in Vancouver, and hope makes you cast wide. He flew to Tokyo himself, walked through Shinjuku and Shibuya with her photo on his phone, showing it to shelter workers and night shift nurses and convenience store clerks, in English, in Korean. In broken Japanese, he taught himself on the plane. Nobody had seen her. Shanghai. 3 days, every hospital in a 2-hour radius. Nothing. Vancouver. A week. Her cousin cried. Tae-yang didn't. Not in front of her. His driver, a man named Kang, who'd been with him 9 years, kept a sleep log, 3 hours a night, sometimes 2, never 4, for 243 nights. And the whole time, she was less than 40 floors below him. A man searches 4 countries, spends over 800 million won, loses 19 pounds. His right hand starts shaking so badly he keeps it in his pocket, and his wife is sleeping on his own building's steps. How does that happen? Because the system doesn't see people like Imani. Black, no name, no ID, no Korean. She moved through the country like smoke. Busan to Daegu, a train she got on through an open gate. Daegu to Daejeon, a shelter with 1 bed left but only for 3 nights. Daejeon to Seoul. She can't remember how. A bus, maybe. A truck that stopped for her at a highway rest area. Winter came. She slept in subway stations until security moved her. She found doorways with heat vents. A church in Yongsan gave out blankets on Thursdays. She learned to read Korean characters. Not the meaning, just the shapes, because the difference between a shelter sign and a police station sign meant sleeping warm or sleeping cold. She didn't know she was a nurse, but her hands knew. At a free clinic in Mapo-gu, a volunteer doctor watched her rewrap a child's bandage. 3 loops, tuck, pin. 8 seconds. "You've done this before," the doctor said. She looked at her own hands like they belonged to someone else. Before she was Imani Mensah-yoon, before she married one of the most powerful men in Seoul, she was Imani Mensah, a nurse from Accra, Ghana. 6 years of hospital work. Thousands of hand washes. The muscle memory lived in her fingers when everything else was gone. She was listed as unidentified transient in the Busan records. No cross-check with missing persons. No flag in any database. When Taeyang's investigators searched Korean hospitals, they searched by name. She didn't have one. How did she end up on his building's steps? She drifted to Gangnam. The heating vent near the southeast entrance was warm. She didn't know who owned the building. She didn't know she'd been sleeping 20 feet from his parking space for weeks. Sometimes the cruelest distances are the smallest ones, and by Tuesday noon, everything at that tower had already started falling apart. 9:07 a.m., 2 hours after the water. Taeyang walked back into his building in the same wetsuit, took the elevator to the 38th floor. HR, 6 people in a glass room. The guard, his supervisor, the HR director, a man in his 50s named Oh Jun-sik, 2 floor managers. Nobody sat in the chair closest to Taeyang. That chair stayed empty the way seats stay empty near something dangerous. Choi Dae-sung's fingers kept pressing into his pants fabric, pressing and releasing. He'd been told the owner wanted to see him. Not why. Nobody had told him who the woman was. The HR director spoke first, palms flat on the glass table. "Sir, it's standard procedure. They scare tenants. It's hygiene." He didn't say black. He didn't say homeless. The words were clean. The thing under them was not. Taeyang looked at him. Then he turned to the guard. "You poured water on my wife." 5 words that fell into that room like a stone into still water. The guard's knees softened. The strength left his legs in one wave. He gripped the armrests to keep from sliding off the chair. The HR director's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The 2 floor managers stared at the table. One put his hands in his lap and kept them there. Nobody defended the policy again. "You're fired," Taeyang said. "Clear your locker 1 hour." Then he turned to Oh Jun-sik. "You wrote the procedure. You trained him. You're done." "Sir, I've been with this company for." "You were with this company." By noon, the guard was gone. By 2 p.m., the HR director's access card was dead. By Friday, the private security firm was under full audit, 3 contracts frozen. Let me tell you something about Yoon Taeyang. He owned the building, but the building was just the part you could see from the street. Beneath the glass and the corporate floors, another structure, older, quieter. He controlled shipping routes through Busan and Incheon, quiet shares in 3 construction firms and a media company. When he made a phone call, the person on the other end always picked up, always listened. He was not a good man, not a bad man. He was a man who operated in rooms most people never entered. The rules in those rooms were not the rules outside. That man had just knelt on wet concrete in a $4,000 suit and cried in front of 200 strangers. So when he started ending careers before lunch, nobody questioned it. Not because they agreed, because they understood. But Choi Dae-sung went home that afternoon to a one-bedroom apartment in Gurogu. He sat at the kitchen table and stared at his son's math book, still open from that morning. He didn't pour the water because he hated her. He poured the water because nobody ever told him she was a person worth not pouring water on. Because procedure is what people call cruelty when they want to sleep at night. That doesn't make it better. While the firings rolled through the tower, Imani sat in a private room at Samsung Medical. Clean sheets, warm food, the first real bath she'd had in months. The specialist, Dr. Yun Se-oh-yan, 20 years of brain trauma work, ran tests for 3 days. MRI, cognitive mapping, memory response. The results came back in a folder too thick for good news. She knew how to eat, how to walk, how to wash her hands. The body's skills survived. The self did not. Will she recover? Tae-yang asked. Maybe, Dr. Yoon said. Some patients get everything back. Some get pieces. Some get nothing. He nodded once. He brought Imani home. His home whispered money. High ceilings. Warm wood, windows that turned Seoul into a painting. He'd had the guest room prepared, silk sheets, a view of Bukhansan Mountain. He opened the door and stepped aside. This is yours, for as long as you need. Imani looked at the room. Beautiful, soft, everything she hadn't had for 8 months. She turned and looked down the hall, past the guest room, past the bathroom, to a smaller door near a garden window. A simple room, a single bed. A lock on the inside. She pointed. That one, she said slowly. And I want the key. The smallest twitch under his jaw. He looked at her face. This face he'd loved for 4 years, searched 4 countries for, and she looked back with the careful blankness of a woman trusting a stranger because she had no other choice. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the key, placed it in her palm, stepped back. Lock it whenever you want. I'll sleep in the study. She closed her hand around the brass, walked to the small room, closed the door. The lock clicked. He stood in the hallway and listened to that click. Then he walked to the study, sat down, pressed both hands flat against the desk, and kept them there for a long time. Her room, her lock, her pace. No touching unless she started it. No stories about their life unless she asked. No photos, no proof. No do you remember when? He would be a stranger. A kind stranger with clean sheets and warm food and a key she could turn whenever she felt afraid. I need you to answer this honestly. If the person you loved looked you in the eye and felt nothing, could you still show up every night, or would you force the ending? Tell me in the comments. 2 weeks later, Dr. Yun's office, a photo response test, printed images from Imani's life, their wedding, their apartment, her nursing school in Accra. Each one held up. Each one watched for a flicker. The third photo. Their wedding day. Something happened. Not memory. Frustration. Her eyes narrowed. Her breathing changed. She held up her hand. Stop. Dr. Yun paused. Tae-yang went still in the doorway. No more photos, Imani said. Her voice was stronger than it had been since the water. No more prove it. I want language first. Language? English. Korean. I want words. I want to talk before I remember. She wasn't asking. She was choosing. She wanted her voice back before she gave anyone her memory. Tae-yang's right hand, the one with the tremor, pressed flat against his thigh. Whatever she wants, he said. He walked out. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, eyes closed, chest rising, falling, a black woman. In a country that wasn't hers, in a room paid for by a man she didn't remember. And even in the fog of amnesia, even without her name or her past, she had enough spine to say, I choose how I come back. Not you. 3 months into recovery, she'd moved to a medical suite in Gangnam, closer to his home, closer to the room with the lock. Every night he came. 8:30 p.m., same time, same chair. He'd bring the same book, A worn Korean poetry collection she'd once told him she liked, back when she could tell him things. He read softly while she lay facing the wall. He didn't know if she was listening. He didn't ask. Some nights he read their wedding vows, not to remind her, the way a man says a prayer he's not sure anyone hears, because saying it is the only thing holding him together. The monitor beeped its slow green rhythm. The room smelled like clean sheets, and the faint citrus of the hand lotion the nurses left on the nightstand. 3 months of walking in, sitting down, reading words into a room that gave nothing back. Tuesday, 2:47 a.m. He'd fallen asleep in the chair, head tilted, mouth slightly open, tie pulled loose. He looked like a man who'd stopped performing strength and just been tired for a few hours. She woke up, turned over, looked at him. Not with love, with something else. The way you look at someone who is clearly broken by something you can't see. Why are you here every night? His eyes opened, the book slid from his knee and hit the floor. Because you shouldn't wake up alone. She looked at him for a long time. The monitor beeped. I don't know you, she said. Not cruel. Gentle. The way you tell someone a truth you wish you didn't have to. I know. It might not come back, the doctor told me. Some people never remember. He didn't move. I'm worried that you're waiting for a person who won't come back. She looked at the wall, back at him. I don't want to owe you something I can't give. Here was a woman, a black woman, in a country that wasn't hers, in a room paid for by a man she didn't remember, and even without her name or her past, she had enough dignity to refuse being someone's project, enough strength to tell a powerful man, I might not become what you need me to be. Amnesia can't touch that. Taeyang sat in the chair. His right hand was shaking. He pressed it flat against his thigh. You don't owe me memory, he said. She studied his face. He let her. This man who never let anyone see past his surface, who ran an empire on controlled silence, sat still and open, and let a woman who didn't know him look at him like he was just a man. She turned back toward the wall. You can stay, she said quietly, if you want. He picked up the book. Same page. Started reading. She closed her eyes. The monitor beeped. The hallway light hummed. 20 minutes later, her breathing slowed to sleep. And Taeyang put the book on his lap, pressed both hands against his face, and cried without making a sound. His shoulders shook. The tears ran between his fingers and dripped onto the open page. He cried until his chest hurt. Then he wiped his face with his sleeve, opened the book, and kept reading. To no one. To her. To whoever she was now. Something shifted after that night. Not a crack in a dam. More like a door that was locked was now. Not open. Unlocked. She still kept her room, still turned the key, still called him Mr. Yoon. But she started asking questions, small ones. What city is this? Seoul. How long was I gone? 8 months. Where did I live before? Busan. Near the water. The English lessons started in week 3. A tutor named Park Mina Young, patient. Imani's English was already there, buried under the amnesia-like furniture under a dust sheet. Full sentences within days. She read a newspaper article and corrected the tutor's pronunciation. The Korean came slower, but it came. Then, week 5, the thing that made the doctors go quiet. The rehab center had a small practice clinic. Fake patients, training mannequins. Imani walked past on her way to lunch and stopped. A young nurse was wrapping a mannequin's arm. The loop is too loose, Imani said. The nurse looked at her. Tighter on the second pass. 3 wraps, tuck, pin. She walked over, took the bandage, did it herself. 8 seconds. Perfect. She looked at her own hands again, the first time she touched him. Week 6. 11 p.m. He was reading. Same chair, same book, same page he'd been on 3 nights running. She was facing him this time, eyes open. Her hand came out from under the blanket. Slow. Reached for the bed rail. Her fingers touched the back of his hand. He stopped reading. Didn't move. Didn't look at her. Didn't breathe. He sat perfectly still, and the tears came again, silent, running down the sides of his face into his collar, and he didn't wipe them because wiping them would mean moving. Her fingers curled around his. She fell asleep that way. He didn't move for 4 hours. When sunrise hit the garden window at 5:48 a.m., his back was on fire and his neck was locked at an angle that would take 2 days to undo. After that night, it wasn't memory that grew. It was trust. She started eating with him in the mornings, asking about the garden, about Seoul, about what she was like before. He told her small things. She liked mangoes but not bananas. She sang in the shower. She laughed harder at bad jokes than good ones. One evening he played a song, quietly, on his phone, set on the nightstand, an R&B track, slow, smooth, something about staying. Their song, the one from their first date, the one playing the night of the crash. She was lying on her back, eyes closed. Her fingers twitched on the blanket. Her breathing changed, faster, then slower, then faster. Her lips moved. Green, she whispered. He went still. Green, she said again. Eyes closed, forehead creased. Something green. The dress, the green dress, the one she'd never worn, the tag still on. His hand came up to his mouth. He pressed his knuckles against his lips. She flinched once, steadied, slept. He sat in the dark and let the song finish. 5:12 a.m. A Thursday. He was asleep in the chair, head tilted. The book had fallen. She looked at him, and she said his name. Not Mr. Yoon. Not his family name. Not the name newspapers used or employees called him. The name only she had ever called him. The private name. The one she used when they were alone in their apartment in Busan, when the doors were closed and the world was far, and they were just two people who chose each other. Taeya. He woke, he looked at her face, and he saw it, the thing that had been missing for 11 months, a light behind her eyes, not blank, not polite, a look that knew him. Taeya, she said again. There was a song, on the radio. I was driving, and her voice broke. Her hands came to her face. The memories came fast, not in order, in pieces. A beach on Jeju, a bicycle in Accra, a truck horn, airbag powder, red and blue lights, cold highway against her back, then nothing, then cold, then trains, then concrete steps and lobby lights and the sound of shoes at dawn and a bucket of water hitting her face like the world saying she was still alive and still alone. The dinner, the restaurant. I was late. The truck came from the left and She grabbed his hand. Not careful, hard, like a woman drowning. He held on. I couldn't remember anything. For months. I didn't know my own name. I didn't know how to ask for help because I didn't know what I needed help with. Her voice was raw, torn. I remember the shape of it, the blankness. It wasn't cold like weather. It was cold on the inside, like being in a room with no walls and no floor and no name for any of it. She stopped crying, wiped her face. Is the dress still there? He didn't answer right away. His throat worked. He walked to the closet in the hallway, the one he hadn't opened in 11 months, and unzipped the garment bag. Green silk, knee length, tag still on the left sleeve. The dress she bought for their anniversary. The dress that hung in the back of her car when the truck ran the light. The dress that survived the crash and the impound lot and the 8 months and the 243 nights. She pressed it against her chest and sat on the closet floor. She didn't cry. She held it, pressed the fabric against her ribs like she was trying to close the gap between the woman who bought this dress and the woman sitting on this floor. He sat down next to her, on the floor, in his wrinkled suit. Two people on a closet floor holding a dress that cost 120,000 won and meant more than everything in the building below them. They remarried on October 14th, the anniversary 1 year after the crash. 6 people in a room. Dr. Yoon, who'd said maybe. Kang, the driver who kept the sleep log and never once said give up. Park Mina, who watched a woman rebuild herself word by word. 2 nurses who'd seen Imani rewrap that bandage in 8 seconds and known, before anyone, that this woman was coming back. The green dress fit differently now, loose at the shoulders where she'd lost weight on the streets, changed at the waist. She'd cut the tag off herself that morning with scissors at the kitchen counter and said, "This dress has waited long enough." Taeyang's hands shook working the zipper at her back. His right hand, the tremor, couldn't grip the pole. She reached behind her own back and guided his fingers, held them steady, zipped it together. He looked at her. No mask, no empire, no power. She whispered it, right there, in front of 6 people, while the candles flickered and the officiant waited. Taya. He closed his eyes, but there was one question she couldn't answer. How many nights did I sleep on those steps? She asked him. He asked the building staff. Nobody had counted. Nobody had noticed. The security footage cycled every 7 days. The tapes were gone. She remembered the cold of the stone, the lobby light reflected on pavement, the sound of the first shoe at dawn, always around 6:30, always a sharp click, and how she'd curl tighter and pull the blanket over her head and wait for the clicking to pass. But she didn't know how many nights. 2 weeks? 3? 6? The number lived in a gap nobody could fill. Tae-yang stood at the window some evenings after dinner, looking down at the plaza, the steps, the spot near the heat vent. They were married again. She called him by his name. She slept beside him. Sometimes she laughed the way she used to, head back, hand on his arm, and the sound hit him like a wave. But the missing time stayed missing, not as pain, not as a wound, as something quieter. A scar that didn't hurt but wouldn't flatten. She never asked him to stop looking at the steps. He never asked her to stop trying to count the nights. Some mornings, she woke early and washed her hands. 3 times. Hot water, soap, rinse. She'd look at her fingers, clean, steady, a nurse's fingers, and dry them slowly, then go back to bed. The dress hung in the closet, worn once. Finally, the bucket was thrown away the same day, but at night, when rain hit the windows, she sometimes sat up in bed, eyes open, listening, not to the rain, to something underneath it, the sound of water hitting skin, the cold, the gasp. He'd reach for her hand, she'd let him take it. They never talked about the bucket. They didn't need to. It lived in the room the way a third person lives in a house, never seen, always felt, a shape in the corner of every quiet moment. And some nights, when the rain was heavy and the windows ran with water, she'd squeeze his hand, and he'd squeeze back. And they'd sit together in the dark, 2 people who found each other twice, listening to the storm pass.